Yes, this is a dream log. I had a dream I was in a room sleeping, and the room was just full of stuff. Uh, and there was a loud, terrifying noise, and I looked over, and there was something stuck under a bookshelf, and it came out, and it was a large carpenter bee, and I swatted it and smashed it. Um, I think that's the fear and anxiety of doing something difficult, and then just whack. It'd be weird if the dream was just telling me to go ahead and do the thing, but whatever. And then I had a dream about 10 minutes ago, maybe 30 or so, where I was in like a mansion, old mansion, and I was talking to a kid, and the kid was being super hypercritical of everything I did in my life. Uh, Talking down, being arrogant, and just. And I tolerated it at first because it's a kid and it doesn't know anything, and then I just snapped on it and started just. You don't understand what happened to me. Like, and I went on a tear screaming at this kid who was just a smug prick. And I don't know. Um, the dream's very complicated, and to make things even more complicated, Google or even the AI doesn't really have much on it outside of uh, you might be afraid of being vulnerable, or you could be imagining talking to your inner child, which I guess I'm imagining talking to my inner child. Maybe, well, it was hypercritical and it was kind of smug and arrogant in its behaviors, which is something I've been told I do. So if that stands to reason, then maybe the dream was about dealing with myself and my how my relations go with other people and how I'm hypercritical of everybody else and how that negatively impacts them, because obviously terrorizing somebody about their flaws and all their mistakes until they explode on you. And the little kid was telling me I was a coward, and I told him, I was like, you don't have life experience. You don't know what I'm talking about, kid. Like, uh, in it had that kind of same smug arrogance that Blondie had, and I started getting more pissed off because stupid people that think they're smarter than you. Um, I don't aspire to be able to interpret every dream I have. I was trying to communicate with my shadow self. I was trying to find out why I don't have any drive or willpower to do anything, and I ended up dreaming of me being extremely hypercritical of myself. Uh, I guess I need to stop being hypercritical of others and myself. Um, I personally have always found that to be a good trait, but I guess maybe that's something that needs to die with my former self. Can't sit around here chewing Blondie's every mistake Blondie made about lying and manipulating and all this other shit. It makes me wonder, because I remember Blondie doing it, but I also remember these other guys that kept calling me. Do every member of this church did it, for that matter. Where they were extremely hypercritical of me, but I would just flip the boat back on them, because regardless of how hypercritical they were of me, my shortcomings and my failures, they were still at an advantage and they were still doing shitty, and that was how I was hypercritical of them, was pointing out that you're still fucking doing shitty even though, like, you're hypercritical of me. Um which, once again, and you can equate this to my weird fixation. There's a thing with Carl Jung talking about money and how if you hate rich people and you want to be wealthy yourself, the super or the subconscious mind will stop you from becoming rich because it'll turn you into something undesirable. So you need to know what your relationship with money is, and money represents security and power for me. That's what money represents: is security and power with me. That is why you will hear me say, like, rich people don't have real problems. And I guess that's hypercritical because I guess they kind of do have real problems if they're as stupid as they are. But I don't know. The next thing's going to be like, quit saying mean things, talking down about other people. It's why you talk down about yourself. Like, it's weird because I guess the subconscious mind takes everything you say and turns it inward. And I remember Anal Eating Mummy God and even the wives when I was out in the desert, when I was just being hypercritical and spitting it like it was. They were so terrified that this was negatively going to impact my psyche, and they wanted me to walk on eggshells, terrified of what the shadow self, I guess the subconscious, would interpret my words as. Yeah. And I just ignored them and I just persisted because that's what I do. And this is a thing. I know I need to get back to trying to go to court or do something, and I'm actually working on something, even though I don't seem like it. But the other side of this is I recognize that when helping others, I have always just straight up ignored my own psychological needs or anything else for that matter. I've just ignored everything and then gone to try and help others, and that's part of the reason why I failed last time, is I didn't take into consideration what my needs were. I was just trying to fix and help everyone like some kind of small child that stumbled upon a bunch of people stuck in a spider's web, and the spider was going to eat them, and I just wanted to grab as many people as I could and pull them out of the spider web without thinking of the consequences or action or the fallout of my actions, I guess. Yeah. The realization that my subconscious just believed I was going to do nothing but hurt Mary. I mean, they were feeding her, that's why she got really big. I guess that's part of the reason my subconscious took action, is it, just like myself, doesn't have a whole bunch of faith in me, which look at me. Look at me. Yeah. Uh I don't aspire to understand every little tidbit. Like, the kid terrorized me until I just flipped out and lashed out on it. And I guess it did what kids did, because I woke up. I got so fucking aggravated I woke up. Kids try to trigger you. And it's the thing about narcissists, according to this young guy. The narcissists are the shadow selves. They are a reflection of the persona, and they themselves don't know who they are because they have no individuation, is what Carl Jung calls it. They don't know who they are, so they want to be other people desperately. It wouldn't surprise me, because I remember talking to Kevin at Papa John's, and he was like, well, if Mary Bowberry was your wife, like, how would you handle that? And I was like, oh, I would help her film stuff. I would encourage her. I would, like, be the most kind and supporting person. And, while pursuing my own goals, and I had hoped that she would support me in that aspect. And I went on a thing about how I absolutely loved her girl next door psychology. And, like, how she came off that way, and how even other SSBBWs described her as the girl next door. In It wouldn't surprise me is if Blondie literally just made that roadmap and was like, there I am, right there for the rest of my life. I'm Bobby. Like, because if the shadow self wants some type of control, but it in itself doesn't, without the conscience, it doesn't have the ability to know who it is. So it just goes around like a small child pining for validation and love. And control. A sense of control in its life because it doesn't have agency in its own life. And Anal Eaten Mummy God, this was funny because I wish that Anal Eaten Mummy God and every church leader had agency in their life. And Anal Eaten Mummy God called me back 3 days later and was like, I don't know how you live like this. Agency is horrible. It is so horrible. There's so much accountability. Oh man, I don't want this. And that's because the subconscious mind doesn't have agency. The shadow self doesn't have that. And I think about my rage and rejecting my shadow self and pushing those aspects of myself so far away. The internal hatred, it is kind of weird because Carl Jung said, when you can't express aggravation and hatred outward, it turns inward. And I have reflected all that onto my shadow self, I guess, disproportionately. Because it did, just like any parent, I guess, that doesn't know any better, it did want what was best for me. It was just going about it the wrong way. Because we were in a bad situation. I don't know how to 100% explain what is going on with me, and the way I'm just going to describe it is as second puberty, like mental puberty, I guess. Puberty can be a scary thing, and there are little kids that'll panic when they find out about puberty because they don't understand it. The only thing they know is it's change, and they don't want change. Think like every Republican ever. Oh no, change, the thing that happens all the time! Like, you're a fool if you're fighting change. The only thing you'll do is plunge the world into darkness because you want to drive cars from the 60s and you want to force everybody else to. It is okay if you want to drive cars from the 60s. It is not okay if you force other people to drive cars from the 60s. Okay. I just realized something that I do that's kind of weird, but I'll deal with it myself. How to even get into this, in stories, the reason why stories focusing on male heroes and they absolutely hate female, heroes is actually a gender thing. Yeah, it's a gender thing. It's part of the reason why Jurassic Park Rebirth did so bad, because Zara Bennett is a hero. She is a non-male caricature female hero. She's not a Vasquez of any type. That is why the Republicans hate it. And it also hates it because they have strong gender roles. In their mind, the man is supposed to be the hero. And that is because symbolically the sword in history represents ego. Or the male penis. And it also, here's a really fun fact, can represent the cross. Which I would argue some people's ego is a church. Okay, they don't have one of themselves, or the church somehow commandeers their ego. I don't really care. It's part of being a collective. I'm not even going to get into that. But even in The Legend of Zelda, you start out with a not-so-good sword, meaning you're probably not very good at pleasing women. And then you get a better sword, and you get probably a little better at pleasing women. And then you get an even bigger, longer, harder, stronger sword. And you're probably the master of pleasing women. And if you want to get into, if you want to make some young psychology with some, what's the guy, Sigmund Freud psychology, you could argue every dungeon in a Zelda game is actually a metaphor for dating women and the terror men feel when it comes to having to perform and have sex with them is fighting the monster before you get the heart. and you could argue that is the metaphor in every Zelda game. You enter a dungeon you don't understand, a vagina, a void. You go through this complex thing like a relationship, this game, this trivial game, and then you get all the way to the monstrous, terrifying vagina, and you stab it repeatedly with your sword, and then it submits to you, and you get its heart, which I guess is how dating works when you're a young child and not an adult. I don't know how my brain just put that together. I love the Zelda games. I'm really sorry. Wow. But this is the same thing in movies and any hero tale. It's always the hero gets a sword. I think it's like Perseus or Odysseus or something. He moves a rock, picks up the sandals, and then gets his sword. His mother used to sit on the rock, and then he goes on an adventure to become a man. And I very much feel that same kind of thing going on in my mind at the moment, like my subconscious mind. Yeah. Oh boy, second puberty, scary. I think we should probably cut it. This 16 minutes. And we kind of add anything relevant to this. I was fairly good at understanding poetry in middle school and high school, and I was always a fairly creative person. I think one of the mistakes I'm making now is I'm listening to more Carl Jung stuff than I am actually trying to communicate with the shadow self, and I think I should just shut up and stop looking for Carl Jung to guide me and just do me and try to talk to the shadow self. I really hope there is something I repress that can make me a super powerful and unstoppable being. I don't know. I mean, when I was out there in the desert, you had to literally teleport to get into this one room that had no entrance, and I somehow teleported, but also remember I was high on drugs. I'm a little annoyed that all information currently about the ego death involves popping psilocybin, and one part of me is wondering if I've been dosed with something like heavy metals to get me into this weird state to stop me from trying to go to court. Yeah, that's just be how I feel though, you know. I don't really have much else worthy of note outside of that. I guess I really regret how I was acting in all the other things. I'm gonna be clear on this. I can forgive the person, but I do not forgive the action. One of the biggest mistakes people make when dealing with any Republican is when they do something fucked up because they're all emotionally repressed and they think like imbeciles, and then they go, I forgive you, and then that guy goes, I can do it again. No, that doesn't mean you get to do it again. This means that I'm going to forgive you as a person, but I will never forgive the act. Because as soon as you forgive the act, they once again go right back and they do the same stupid thing again and again and again, and it gets tiring. It really does. Just hold your dumbass Republican friends to account because they don't do accountability.